Hello again there, friends and neighbors. Mike Troe for the Saline County League of Women Voters. Hey, we had a really good forum last month. It went over extremely well. We got a lot of information out to people. The election happened a couple of weeks after that. Everything went really good. Remember, we here at the League are here to empower and encourage, is what you see there on the screen. And as you notice, as the camera back here, I am not alone this month. I have, there we go. I have Don Merriman. He's the county clerk. And if there's anything to be known about elections, this dude knows it. So I figure rather than me coming in and stumbling through a bunch of stuff, and then having Don call me up later and say, no, you messed that up, messed that up, messed that up, messed that up. I just let Don do it, and then we'll just, you'll get it right the first time, Like when I was at Applebee's, we had a saying, it takes twice as long to do it wrong. So we'll just do it right the first time and get it done. So here's Don. He's going to give us all of the straight poop when it comes to the elections. And like I said, if it's to be known about elections, Don knows it. And Don, how you been lately?
Doing well. It's just kind of recovering from an August 2nd primary. It takes me a few days, sometimes 2 weeks, to get my sleep caught back up. Don't get a lot of sleep during that time frame, but it was a good election, as you said. August 2nd was a good election. Kind of a hot day. People did come out. We had right at 26% turnout, which is commendable for the voters. There were some good primaries, obviously, that happened that day, and some big changes on the county commission and a change in the Senate race. So people were paying attention, and they came out, and we appreciate them coming out that day and voting in advance as well. So one of the things I might mention is I have a voter registration application here. This is one of the first things that you have to do in order to be a registered voter. Obviously, you have to be 18 years of age, and if you had a felony, that you committed a felony and lost your rights to vote, you have to have your rights restored in order to be a registered voter.
And that's in the news right now because John Hinckley, the man who 30 years ago shot Ronald Reagan, he's going to be able to vote this time around. And there's a lot of people who don't like that. But,
right.
Hey, like you said, he had his rights restored to him.
That's exactly the bottom line, is if you've lost your civil rights, you've had them restored, you've paid your restitution, done your time, whatever the issues may be. The bottom line is, if you've got your rights restored, then you can register and you can vote. The form is fairly simple form. It just asks, are you a citizen of the United States of America, yes or no? Will you be 18 years of age on or before election day, yes or no? Form asks for last name and address and all of that. Even if you make a move from one apartment to another in the same apartment complex, if you move across the street, you move anywhere in the county, you need to re-register to vote so you get the proper ballot on election day. Because we have to vote on the people who are representing us.
That's something that my wife and I did here about 5 years ago. We moved from one apartment to another in the same complex.
Right.
But we still had to go down and re-register.
But the reason we do that is like we had a mail ballot earlier this spring for the city of Salina sales tax. We want to make sure that if you moving to a different apartment, we want to make sure you get that ballot to vote on in the proper mailbox. So that's sometimes people don't understand that. But anytime you change your name, make a move, you need to fill out a voter registration card. For those new voters only, I want to explain. 18 years of age, they're brand new to voting in the state of Kansas, or an 80-year-old who just moved here from out of state, voting for the first time in the state of Kansas, or anywhere in between. or older than that too. I'm not going to stop it at 80 years old, because we have some people who are 90 and 100 years old voting, which is great. You have to provide proof of citizenship. That was a law that took effect in January of 2013. Primarily, what you have to show is a birth certificate, and we actually will make copies. People can fax or email those to us, or you have a birth certificate you want to bring in to us, we'll make a copy. We don't want you having to spend any money on this. We'll make you a copy and put it in your file. U.S. passport can work. It can even be expired if you have an expired passport. Naturalization document. Somebody who's been naturalized citizen. Bureau of Indian Affairs, U.S. record of birth, hospital record of birth. They do make a little birth registration card that will work. Military record of service that shows the applicant's place of birth in the U.S. And there are several other things, but primarily the birth certificate is what we normally see. That has to be shown before you are a registered voter. State law, like I said, took effect January of 2013. We currently still have about 300 people that have to show proof of citizenship.
Okay, now what happens to those applications that you do not have?
We put them, they're in a queue, so to speak, in our voter registration system. We call it ELVIS, Election Voter Information System, but we put that in a queue, and they're
very well.
Elvis. If you hear us talking about Elvis, we're not talking about the singer, but we're talking about our election voter information system. At any rate, you can go to any state or any county in this state and go to the county clerk's office. You say Elvis, they'll know what you're talking about. We put those people in a kind of what they call a suspense list, and unfortunately they're not done registering yet. They still have to show proof of citizenship. We have sent out 3 letters to these folks at individual times asking for that proof of citizenship. Still kind of come in, dribs and drabs are coming in, either by email or by fax, or somebody walks one in, and we, like I said, we'll make a copy of it for them.
Yeah. Now, we at the league, when we go to sign people up, we are going to get a copying machine, and so they can bring their proper verification to us, and we'll run it off. We'll put it in a box, and only you can open that box.
Yeah.
Now, is that all right?
Sure, that's fine. As long as we can get it one way or the other. I might mention I was at Southeast of Saline School last fall, almost a year ago now, talking to a couple of government classes. They were all seniors, and they're all eligible to register to vote. So I took in voter registration applications. And for the students who started at that school, and of course most people know that that's K through 12 there at that school, they were able to go to, and they made prior arrangements that they went to the nurse's office, made a copy of their birth certificate, and I came back with voter registration applications and birth certificates for 40 brand new voters out there, which is great. So we'd like to do more and more of that, and that way once we get them in the system, they're eligible to vote. So that really has worked well.
That's great.
But that is, it's a fairly simple process. I've taken this application to Lakewood Middle School and talked to 7th graders about it, the importance of voting, and I make copies of the application and go through the whole application with them, showing them how easy it is to register to vote. Now I say, before they usually work with 6 classes throughout the day. Before they leave class, I said, what are you going to do first when you get to be 18? And some kid says, vote. And I said, no, what do you got to do first? And they said, register vote. And then I said, what are you going to do? And then they say, vote. And so they hopefully they'll get it. So got it. That's the number one thing we have to do is get people registered to vote and keep updated as you move. I know it's a cumbersome process, but as far as remembering everything you have to do when you do move, but this is one of the important things that you need to do. I might talk a little bit about ID that's required during a voting. This law was passed in January 2012. You have to provide ID every time you vote. That's at the polling place, that's at my office during advanced voting. Advanced voting starts approximately 20 days prior to every election, by the way. But you have to show an ID. And people have done really well over this. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years. But people have done really well showing IDs. We had a couple this August primary forgot to bring their IDs, and they have an opportunity to bring those in prior to the canvass that we had on Monday to show ID, and then we count their vote. In this case, unfortunately, people didn't bring their IDs. So, but that primarily is driver's license, but it can be a non-driver's ID card. It can be an ID issued by the USD, like the USD 305, 6, or 7, student IDs in those schools. College IDs, it has to be a picture ID though, with your picture and the name on it.
Yeah, and that's very important. Your picture and your name.
Your name.
I can't bring in Don's picture and say, oh, I want to, no. It has to be your picture, your ID. I have to say this because, you know, there's always that person who, yeah, but, no.
And it's got to be issued by a governmental agency. In other words, a private company, which a lot of private companies have picture IDs, but they're not government. It has to be issued by a government entity. So,
And you can't make your own.
yeah, you can't make up your own. We'll hope not. I guess you could, but that doesn't count. But anyway, that is like I said, I appreciate people doing that, and that has really worked out pretty well. Obviously, the election worker, when you come in election day, they look at your ID. All they're instructed to do is look at that picture and say, yeah, that looks like Mike, and it's got your name on it. We don't look at the address because we realize as you move, that driver's license is good for 6 years. So the other things that people 65 and older can show an expired driver's license. If they don't drive anymore, 65 and over, they can show that, and that works fine too.
Very good.
So that is kind of the process of voting and voter registration. One other thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is advanced voting. I mentioned that a little bit ago. Advanced voting is very valuable for people who know they're going to be out of town on election day. We can mail a ballot to their home. We can actually start taking applications right now. The applications are available on our website, Saline.org, www.saline.org. On our website, it's Form AV1, and you can actually fill this out for the November 8th general election. The one thing that you have to do on there is that put in your driver's license number or non-driver's ID card number, just the number. You don't have to make a copy of it. But the other neat thing about this is if you're a student going to school outside Saline County, going to college, vocational technical college, wherever you may be, you may still be registered here at home with your parents, but we'll mail you a ballot wherever you go to school. And we do that a lot for people, for students. So they're able to vote on their local people that are going to represent them. We also have an advance status for permanent people who have a disability that's permanent. And all you have to do on this one is state, and you only have to do this one time. The other one that I've just talked about, you have to do that for every election. But for somebody who has a permanent illness or disability, can fill out a form, it's called AV2 form. You just simply put on the nature of the permanent disability or illness, again, the address, the party, date of birth, sign off on it and date it and the phone number, and that stays in your voter registration listing as long as you want it to, and we'll mail you a ballot every election. Have about 300 plus people making use of that right now.
Very good.
So they get a ballot without having to do anything else. They get a ballot in the mail. Of course, the return envelope and the instructions, and all they have to do is vote it and pop it back in the envelope. So very valuable for people. We're seeing more and more people vote in advance by mail as well as in my office. So I'm thinking it's a very good program. It's been in place for over 20 years, so
Good,
people are starting
good.
to get used to that.
Okay, what else you got up here?
What else I have is that obviously it takes workers to work an election, and we do have expressions of interest of anybody who would like to, if they've gone out to vote and they'd maybe like to try this out and working on election day. It's a very long day, as you might figure. I ask people to be at the polling place at 6 a.m., work till 7:30 or 8 at night. You can't leave. You can't have food brought in to you. Or you can bring your own food to locations, have refrigerators and microwaves. So can't do elections without election workers. We had 99 plus workers working on Tuesday, and you have to have them there where you have a 26% turnout or a 86% turnout. You still have to have those hard-working workers there, and they are all trained. I do a 2.5 hour, 3 hour training for each one of them, in groups, of course. You are paid a minimum wage. Like I said, very long day. We have a supervising judge, a judge, and a clerk of the election, and they do various things. Supervising judge comes in and picks up all the supplies the day before the election, and of course delivers those supplies election morning. The machines are delivered prior to the election, and we pick them up after the election. But they are trained in all the procedures. If obviously they have questions, they'll call us. If we have a lost voter, they'll call us, trying to find out where they're supposed to be. We have 33 polling places in the county, in Salina and in the county, total of 33 polling places. So that's quite a lot of work to keep track of all of them and make sure everybody's got what they need.
And then it could be kind of a problem of finding the places to actually have the elections.
Right. Since I've been doing this, when I first got to the job, we had 46 polling places. Well, many of those were schools, particularly in USD 305, and obviously we all see what's going on in the USD 305 schools now, making changes to primarily not only the safe rooms, but also the entry areas that are going to be more secure. And with those more secure entrances, it's going to be tough for voters to walk in the building. Right. So we have since obviously moved out of those, have combined them with some other locations, primarily churches. Although we do vote at the VFW and the Carver Center and the Friendship Center and places like that too. Appreciate the use of the 4-H building and the Kenwood Hall and all over town where we vote.
One more thing, you talk about places to vote. Now, I know like where I live, you go a block down here and there's a polling place. And you go a block here, there's a polling place. But we go all the way over here.
Yes, depending on where those lines are, yeah.
Yeah, well, how do those lines get worked out to where that?
Those are precinct lines and vote tabulation district lines that have been in place for a lot longer than I've been here. So that I don't have the opportunity to make a change in those lines. I make a change in voting locations and combine voting locations together. But that's the one decision that I have to make. And that's what I've been doing since the year 2000 when the schools were being refurbished back then. I had to find suitable locations. Number one, they need to be accessible for everybody. Secondly, they need to be comfortable for the workers, comfortable for the voters. Right. And obviously they have to be willing to use their facility for the day. The churches we pay them a little bit of money for the use of the building, and they allow us to come in with open arms, and I appreciate that very much, because it is somewhat of a disruption when we are in there, obviously, when you have a ton of people walking in the door. But also the churches, speaking of the churches, it exposes the church environment to potential people that maybe they'll want to come back, and maybe they'll want to join. So I want to also give a big shout out to my staff, the clerk staff. Jamie Doss is my deputy. Tammy Cox works the election side. Jillian Johnson, who's been with us a little over a year now, is doing the voter registration, and Jody Russell's been with the county clerk's office for many years. And I want to big thanks to those four ladies. They work very, very hard, along with some friends of mine, Steve Robinson, Doug Snyder, Carl Carnes, Stan Patterson, and Earl Bess are all ones that have helped set up the machines and help deliver and pick up. Without all those people, I'd be in a world of hurt because I can't do it all.
Yeah.
So I really want to thank not only election workers, but all the other, we have an IT department at the county as well, Brad Bowers, Lauren Humphrey, and Kevin Ellis. Very capable guys, and they help me out in the morning and during the day. If there's issues going on with the machines, they're able to go out and troubleshoot a little bit.
And we know there's always some problem with
Well,
the
if
machine
the paper, primarily it's the paper jam. It's a
Right.
real-time audit log on the machine showing that you can stand there and verify the machine's understanding how you're voting. And it's the, as we know, rolls of paper can get jammed, whether it's a cash register or a calculator or whatever it happens to be.
Or it's just me trying to feed it in.
Yeah, it's a real trick. But that is, it takes a huge village, let's say it that way, to run an election, and it's exciting. I get excited. I've done 35 elections now, 36 coming up in November, and it's exciting for me on election night to know that the polls are closed now. Everybody got to vote that wanted to vote, and now we're going to count them. And you're realizing that a lot of people are starting off on something brand new. They've never run for office before, and they're going to start with something brand new, or somebody's getting reelected that has been elected for a while. So it's really fun to do that.
How long does it take you and your staff to get ready for an election?
We've been working, basically we started late last year. We had the city mail ballot along in there, and it ended May the 10th, so we kind of worked that up. We started immediately gearing up for April 2nd, or August 2nd, right, excuse me, and then November 8th. But we actually started with the schedules and the cost that it would be to file for office, the number of petition names on a petition, if you want to file that way, actually way last fall. So we started a year ago. And not that we're working on that every day, but we start preparing a year before typically.
Wow.
And of course, then once the primary is over, which it is now, we've done the canvass. We're getting ready to issue the election certificates for the precinct committee men and committee women, and the nomination certificates for the people who are nominated to move on to the general. A lot of people don't realize that we actually elected people on August 2nd. The precinct committee men and committee women of both parties, they can do an important job, and that is one is appointing and electing a new replacement elected official. Let's say an elected official decides to leave a little early in office,
Right.
or unfortunately they pass away. That happens. I'll just use Carol Beggs as an example. He was elected a few years ago, passed away, and the Republican Central Committee brought in all the precinct men and women and nominated at that time Charlie Roth to be the new representative of the 71st District of the House. Important job, because you are the one as a precinct man or woman making a recommendation for appointment of a new elected official. Now the governor makes the final appointment, but
Right.
but they take a recommendation of the party structure, whether it's Republican or Democrat.
Okay.
So those people were elected that day, and we are issuing election certificates as we speak. So it's the next thing I've got to go do and sign off on a whole bunch of them.
Okay. Anything else you want to go over? I see some papers here that,
Right, we've talked about the advanced voting and the requirements for ID and citizenship. If people have any questions about any of this, they can call our office, 309-5820.
okay?
City County Building, room 215. So we'd be glad to answer questions. If you want to just simply find out if you're registered to vote, if our Elvis system, election voter information system, if we put in everything correctly, give us a call if you're not real sure. Or if you don't know where to vote, call us for that. We'll let you know.
Okay.
So,
Now, I know you talked a little bit about your machines, and I know right now in this country, a lot of people are very insecure about the machines. And when you had the proposed new machines over in your office, I came in and boy, I gave the IT, well, what if and what if and what if? He just smiled and answered all my questions. A good guy. But basically it comes down to the people that you get. So really, what kind of steps do you take? And I'm trying to allay your fears out there, folks. What kind of steps do you take to make sure that the people that you bring in are going to give the voters an honest count?
well, number one, we do test the machines. Each and every machine gets tested before it goes anywhere. We, on our touchscreen machines, we make sure they're calibrated properly. Means we follow little X's around the screen, making sure it's understanding where you touch. We check the time and the date and all of that, make sure that's correct, because it knows at 7 p.m. on election night it's time to close. So we want to make sure the time is correct. And then the big thing is obviously is making sure that the ballot is correct on the machine, and making sure we're testing now. We're making sure that it's understanding and watching the real-time audit log, that piece of paper over here, that it's understanding every place we touch. And that includes the write-in area, making sure that when we hit review, that the review comes up correctly. We do a complete test on every one of the machines. We had right at 100 machines deployed this last election. We'll have probably close to 140 for the next one. But we verify, some of those gentlemen I just talked about, we verify that they are understanding what we're telling them. And then at the end, we actually do a printout, make sure we tested everything on them. Okay.
I mean, as far as the people go, what kind of things do you put them through to make sure that they're not just there to
Well, as
maybe
far as
put
the people
in-
that work for me, you mean?
Right.
They're trusted. Like I said, they're friends of mine. They're trusted. It's not somebody I just hired off the street. It's people that I've known for many years, people I can trust. You got to have some trust here.
Right.
As far as the programming for the machines, I utilize a company in Atchison, Kansas called Lockwood. They actually the ones that print the ballots. They're the ones that program all the materials, the flashcards and the personal electronic ballots that we utilize on the machines. By the way, if somebody wants to, we'll always have paper ballots. No matter what we do, we'll always have a paper ballot. So if somebody comes in at advanced voting or comes in the polling place, somebody wants a paper ballot, here you go. The problem is with a paper ballot, however, there's nobody standing in that voting booth with them.
Right.
Secret ballot. It's all secret ballot. If somebody overvotes, let's say it says vote for one and they vote for two accidentally or on purpose, whatever, but they made a mistake, when they put that ballot in the ballot box, there's nobody standing there checking them. And when we run it through our scanner, it's going to say overvote found. Well, we unfortunately we can't make a determination of what that voter intent is.
Right.
Right? So we pull that out. It stops the counting, of course. We pull that ballot out and notice that and verify that yes, there's an overvote. We take that ballot over to the resolution board made up of 3 sworn election workers, and they hand count the rest of the ballot.
Okay.
Okay, we don't throw out the whole thing, it's just that person made a mistake. The machine, however, will not allow you to overvote. Right. If you vote for one and then change your mind, all you have to do is select the other one. It says canceled one candidate and selected another one. It won't let you make that mistake. Okay. It'll also alert you to undervoting, but go ahead, sorry.
No, I just want to make sure, because that's something that the people are very concerned about. I've got no less than, I think, 10 videos in my email right now where people, well, now I know this, and I know, of course, none of them from here in Saline County. I think that's kind of ironic, but they all say, well, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. So I wanted to hit on that and just make sure, folks, unless you can prove that something is wrong, you got to trust the man. Like you said, you got to have trust somewhere. And so if you can prove it, that's one thing. But don't just stand back and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. No.
The one thing, as you're voting on a machine, if you have a question, don't hesitate to stop and bring a worker over. Whether it's in our office, we have election workers working our office in advance, or on a election day before you hit cast the ballot. Because once you cast the ballot, it's just like putting that piece of paper in that ballot box. If you have a question, don't cast it and confirm it until you get your question answered. Same way with a paper ballot. Don't throw it in that ballot box and then say, I didn't notice so-and-so on there.
Can I do it again?
Yeah. No. But that's the thing, is people who have issues, here's an example. Had a voter during advance voting for this election, and it was for a precinct man and a precinct woman, obviously the same last name, and their first names, I'm not going to say the names, but both of their first names started with a T. Well, they were similar first names, but if you looked, the man was under the precinct man and the lady was under the precinct woman. And this voter looked at it real quick and thought it was the same names. Mm. So she called us in, and I said, well, I always ask, can I come around? And because obviously I'm going to see what's going on, but with me, I take care of the question, walk out the door, and don't remember how they voted. Right. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference to me how they voted. But I said, if you notice, the man's name is such and such, and the lady's, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed. And I said, no, that's all right. Because when you first looked at it, right, it appeared to be the same names. Right. And that happens a lot on elections, because I put the largest print on those machines. That's 14-point font on those machines, but the boxes get fairly close together. The boxes are fairly large, but they get fairly close together. So if you have, my fingers are fairly small, but you have fairly large fingers, you don't happen to hit it just quite right, it'll catch the other one. So watch what it's telling you is all I can say. And if you have questions, please ask before you cast that ballot.
And I do want to make one final comment here before we move on. 120, 130 years ago, before the Australian secret ballot came in, people used to line up in lines behind the picture of the candidates. And they did this because there was such a huge influx of immigrants, they couldn't read English. So they would just, well, this is Boss Tweed and I want to vote for him because he gives me soup. So I'm going to stand here in this line. And you saw who it was. And then we come along. So, you're going to have problems in whatever system, but just understand. He does his best, I do want to ask you some things. You talked about 26% that voted. Mm-hmm. And there's some ideas people have and maybe to increase it. I just want to bounce them off of you and see what you said, like maybe same-day registration?
A lot of states do that. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know exactly. Honestly, I don't know how that works, but I know there's a lot of states that do that.
Okay. voting out of precinct. Maybe instead of me going all the way down to the VFW, I just walk down to the Lutheran church.
There's a vote, they call it vote centers in Colorado prior to election day, and actually on election day. Actually, a friend of mine in Colorado came up with that idea. It's a great idea. Served with him on the standards board of the Election Assistance Commission. Anyway, the way that works is you walk into any vote center around the county, and they'll look you up on an electronic poll book. You can verify you are who you say you are. In this case, you have to show your ID here in the state of Kansas. And you sign in, and they've got every ballot in there, whether it's on a machine or it's by paper or however they're voting. So you can walk in any location in the county, and they're set up real time. So you can't go this vote center here and 5 miles away you can go to the next vote center. So they've got to have a system of checks and balances to make sure you're not going to all the vote centers in one day and casting multiple ballots.
Or again, like what they used to do, start out the day with the full beard, and then you go and vote, and then you shave this part of it, and you go in and vote again, and you wind up clean shaven at the end of the day.
Right.
Online voting?
They're working on it. I say they. I was on the Technical Guidelines Development Committee with the Election Assistance Commission. It's a federal agency. And we were working with the National Institute of Standards and Technology to actually do that for federal voters, military voters. I have since, I'm not on that committee anymore. I'm pretty sure they're still working on that. The problem is that obviously is verifying you are who you say you are, and then keeping the secret ballot. As we said earlier, we have to make sure that we have the integrity of having a secret ballot. So those are the two things we're kind of hanging up. Will we see it someday? I think so, Mike. I think we'll see online voting. We have a company that demonstrated over at our office. Wasn't the company that you witnessed, but they have a process by its election system software out of Omaha, Nebraska. And they have an app for your phone where you can download your sample ballot. You can look at it. You can actually vote on your sample ballot, bring that thing in on election day or during advance voting, and scan that QR code in. And here's your ballot, comes up on the screen like you voted, and you can make changes to it as you want to change it if you decide you want to do that. Or once you're done, you hit print, and it prints you off a little ballot and take it over to the precinct counter and scan it in. Now, that app thing, I think, is something we're going to see more and more of. Everybody's looking at apps these days. So.
Let's see. Drive-through voting, like you pull up at McDonald's and go, I want candidate A from here and C from here.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's going to happen anytime soon, but
Well,
it's an idea, though.
That's like my son looked at me and says, Dad, you know what we need in this, Dad? I said, oh my God, what? And he says, drive-through convenience stores. He says, I'm too lazy to get out of my car.
Well, at one time we had a drive-up tavern here. You could get beer to go.
That's right.
Don't have that anymore.
Let's think, nonpartisan elections. That wouldn't really do anything for you at all, because you'd still have the elections that you'd have to deal with. How about longer voting hours?
That could happen.
Think that would? Okay.
Sedgwick County now starts at 6 a.m. and runs till 7.
Okay.
So that could happen.
Okay. Make election day a holiday.
That'd be good.
That would
Workers
work.
would have to get paid time and a half or
Time
double
and a
time
half,
for
right.
double time, but yeah.
Like when I was working at a truck stop, triple time and a half. Everybody wondered why I loved working holidays, and then they found out.
Well, I think for people who are working long hours that day, election day, I think it would be good to, I mean, they may, I don't know whether that would work or not. I think it's not a bad idea. There's several countries, Australia being one, if you don't go vote, they fine you.
Right.
So I'm not advocating that, but
Okay. Well, what kind of ideas do you have for increasing the voting percentage?
I would love to see mail ballot.
The
All
mail-in
mail ballot. The state of Oregon, state of Washington, and
Well, wouldn't the women not like that? I mean, you just have
M-A-I.
poor,
M-A-I-L.
poor pun, folks.
Very poor. State of Oregon's been doing this for many years, and they standardly on every election they get 85% return. So I'd love to see that happen before all these counties nationwide, state of Kansas, buy new voting equipment. Now there's already some have bought new stuff.
Right.
It's the thing is, if you've done a mail ballot election like USD 305 in 2014 did that bond issue, we had 51% return. The city of Salina did that one in this year, 2016, 41%. Because you put postage on the return envelope coming back, so they don't have to spend any money, because that's the only way they have to vote. But to me, mail ballot is the way to go. Because there's a lot of preparation ahead of time,
Right.
working with the post office, working with printers to print everything up. But I tell you, once that starts coming in, it's great.
Now, isn't the biggest problem on that, though, they have to sign the back of the envelope?
They do.
And
And I
People
I
forget
understand there's some people don't like mail ballots, even the ones that we have with the advanced vote right now, because when you mail more than one ballot to a home, is each individual getting to vote? I don't know. We don't follow along. So if four ballots go to four individuals in the home, is one of them grabbing them and voting them all? I don't know. That's the other things, we don't know that. However, we do check the signatures on the back of that envelope. That's the reason they need to be signed. We check that signature and we look into the election voter information system and compare it. And that's one way that we can hopefully make sure that that individual voted that ballot's in that envelope.
that's very good.
I tell you, it's happening in more and more states, and Oregon, you can't go wrong with their result, 85% on it. It doesn't make any difference what election it is, and they can obviously mail it, they can put it in a secured drop box, kind of like our water department over here, or obviously drop it off at the election office. So they've been doing that for almost 30 years in Oregon.
It's been working real well.
Worked well. People love it.
Very
Actually,
good.
it was a voter initiative that put that in place. So
Maybe that's what we need here in Kansas, the voter initiative along those lines.
I tell you, I can tell you most county clerks would be for that, especially if they've done one. If they haven't done one, they're kind of nervous about it. But I can tell you, after doing 2 of them here, I think it's a way to go.
All right.
I mean, I love having the election workers out there. Like I said, and they've become friends of mine, and but I'd sure like to see us go mail ballot.
Okay, anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. My main concern is that people get registered, they get ready for November 8th. It's going to be another one of those historic elections, I think.
It's going to be a big one.
It's going to be a big one. Very, very important one, as they all are, but very important to our country and our state and our local government. So, going to be 4 brand new commissioners coming out of this.
Yeah.
So,
And then we have an interesting thing in the U.S. House 1st District, where you got 3 people running. You got a Republican, an Independent, and a Libertarian.
Yeah.
So that's going to be
unique.
interesting too, how that comes out. So, well, anyway, I want to thank you, Don, for your time.
Thank you for the time.
He's a very busy man, folks, and I'm glad that he took this time to be here with us. Before we leave today, I would like to encourage you to create and maintain an election diary. Just take a blank piece of paper, office up top, issue over here, what you think, take all the candidates, put them there, and just write what each candidate thinks on there. And then when it comes time for November the 8th, you know, and of course you keep track as the campaign goes along, but look at that sheet. Oh, well, no, this candidate is the one that agrees with me, you know. Okay, you know, it's an easy, simple thing to do, and it's something that would help you make your decision. Again, Don, 1,000 thanks,
you.
my friend.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time, folks, for the Saline County. Almost did. For the Saline County, yeah, whoever this group is. We'll see you next month. May God bless. Yeah, there, that group.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Major of the Army Ray Chandler. This November, you and your family members will have the opportunity to exercise your right to vote in upcoming elections. I encourage you to do your part and make your voice heard on issues that are important to you. Wherever you are, it's not too late to vote. You can make a difference. If you have questions, see your voting assistance officer. It's a freedom you defend. Vote.